Hey there, my name is Jason and this is my SawStop Contractor Saw. I have had this saw for 10 years now, and so I thought now would be a good time to give it a long-term review and go over some of the good, the bad, and the ugly.
That's one of the uglies.
So when I got this saw, I was a hobbyist furniture maker, and this saw looked quite a bit different than it does now. It had the original stamped wings that these saws come with, and it also had the base model fence that the contractor saw comes with. And so when it was in that base configuration, I built tons of projects with it. I was building coffee tables and end tables, that sort of thing. The motor was able to handle anything I threw at it. Sure, it would bog down every once in a while if I was cutting really thick hardwoods. I might even have to cut something in 2 passes. But, that wasn't really that big a deal. This thing worked great. I did get frustrated with that base model fence after a while. It's really kind of flimsy. It's kind of hard to adjust. And so one of the first upgrades I did to this saw was get the T-Glide fence. And I've been really happy with this T-Glide fence. This thing just adjusts so much easier. It's perfectly parallel to my blade. It's nice and solid. And I can get this thing dialed in within just like a few thousandths of an inch. And so then eventually I added this bench dog router table. This thing has been really great, and I just love having a router table built into my table saw. Being able to utilize my rip fence with a lot of the operations that I do on this thing has proved to be really super handy. Then of course I had to add the cast iron on this side too, and this has been really great. I get much less vibration out of the saw. It's been a lot more stable. I really like having the cast iron wings in here. And then I did add the cauliflower zero clearance insert, the throat insert in here. And I like having that. This thing is really nice. And so then, yeah, I built all kinds of furniture, all sorts of pieces on this thing. And, I was a hobbyist woodworker, weekend warrior kind of thing. And this thing was working out just fine for me. But then about 5 years ago, I got into the window business. And now I'm building, I'm building wooden windows and frames, sills, storm windows, screens, whatever, you name it, whatever it is. If it's window related, I'm building it on this saw. And so when I'm building windows, frequently I'm ripping straight grain Doug fir down into components, and half of those components are getting tenons. And so I'm using this saw to put the tenons on all my pieces. And so I'm switching blades in this thing all the time. I'm constantly pulling out my combo blade and putting in my dado stack. And that's one area where this saw really shines, is the fact that I've just got plenty of room to reach down in here, loosen up the nut, get my blade out of here, get my cartridge out of here, get everything swapped out, and I can have a dado stack in here in just a couple of minutes. And of course that is one of the downsides of owning a SawStop, is that you do have to have a separate brake cartridge for your dado stack. And those things are kind of expensive. A dado brake I think is running about $110. And so, that is just one thing to be aware of. And so while we're on the subject of brake cartridges, I suppose it might be a good time to bring up brake activations. I have had 2 in the time that I've owned this saw. Neither of them were due to skin contact. The first one was something that happens to a lot of SawStop owners. I had an aluminum miter fence in my saw, and I did not have it adjusted correctly. And so that aluminum fence came into contact with my blade and just tripped it, instantly. It did leave a very tiny little nick into the aluminum that I could see, but only because I knew right where the blade had hit it. So the safety mechanism is absolutely 100% effective, I believe. So then it's my second brake activation where things get a little bit weird. I actually had my dado stack in, and I was setting up some half laps, and it just so happened that I was filming a video for a Facebook group, and so I actually got it caught on camera. So without further ado, here it is. All right, so what happened there? Well, honestly, I guess I wish I knew for certain. I've speculated about a few things. A few things were a little bit different that I don't normally do. For one, I had my fence set much closer to my blade than I usually have it, at least when I have my dado stack in there. And I wondered if maybe that had anything to do with it. I really don't think that it did. Then there was just the fact that I was videotaping it, and I have my phone actually connected to my camera on a little Wi-Fi network that I use as a start and stop, and I had that sitting on my saw, and I wondered if maybe that had something to do with it, that it caused some weird electrical interference or something like that. But I really don't think that had anything to do with it. Then, I guess if I really want to be honest with myself, there is one other thing that I do think could have been going on, and that's the fact that I did have my dado cartridge set a little bit further away from the blade than is recommended by SawStop. They give you this little tool down here that just sits in this little case, and it's got the magnets on the back, and you can use this. It's a little Allen key, and you use this to adjust the space between your cartridge and your blade. And on here, if I can get this out of here, there's actually a little, it's almost like a little feeler gauge at the tip of here. You use this to get down between your cartridge and your blade, and that's how far the gap should be. And I did have that gap set just a little bit further than what's on this little piece of plastic here. But I also had been running that cartridge in that same position for years. I had it set that way because I think I had a box joint blade that needed to be a little bit further, and it was just more convenient to leave it set like that. And like I said, I had been running it that way for years, and it never gave me a problem. So why all of a sudden, when I happened to be shooting this footage for some Facebook group, that it just happened to activate, I have no idea. And so between the cost of a dado stack and the new blade, that put me out almost $300, and I was not very happy about that. And so that is something that I would kind of call an ugly thing about this saw. I never did really find out for sure what happened, but I went and put a new cartridge in, and I put a new dado stack in, and this time I set it to the exact recommendation, and now I've been running it this way for years since then. And, it's been running just fine ever since. And so then, other than some very expensive trips to my local woodcraft, I would say my next biggest gripe about this thing is the dust collection on this thing is only so-so. It mostly works okay. I've got my dust collector right there, and I hook it right up into my saw. One of the problems, though, is the gears will get very clogged up with dust after some time. And in fact, it'll get to a point where I actually can't even lower the blade lower than the throat plate, and so the blade will actually stick up a little bit, and then every once in a while I'll actually catch it on my fence if I don't notice that it's done that. And so then I just got to go in there with some compressed air and really spray all around, just spray everywhere you possibly can even think of, and just get all of the dust out of here. And then it works just fine after that. But bottom line, would I recommend this saw to somebody if they were a serious hobbyist or even doing light professional work? And the answer is absolutely yes. This saw has been great. This thing has been just an absolute workhorse for me. And yeah, every once in a while, I do wish it had some more power. But the next step up, a 3 horsepower PCS, is a big jump up in price. Then of course, you're also going to have 220 volt to be able to run that saw. And so if the question is whether I would buy this saw again, the answer is absolutely yes, I would. I have absolutely no regrets about this saw. I have no regrets about any of the upgrades that I've done to this saw. And so if you're on the fence about a contractor saw and you're just worried that it's not going to be able to cut thick hardwoods, if it's not going to be something that you're going to be able to grow with, if it's not going to something that's going to last for a good long time, then I can tell you that the SawStop Contractor Saw absolutely will fit your needs. All right, so if you got any questions about the saw or any of the upgrades that I've made, go ahead and drop them down in the comments section. And if this video helped you out at all, maybe think about giving it a like and a subscribe. And then you can always find me and the stuff that I'm doing at jmawoodstudio.com. Thanks for watching.